Yeah, you don't know this, but one of the lines that Andrew used today was like about the vine. Well, we had a conversation about a vine because somebody asked me to meet with some wealthy guy in L.A., and they actually wanted me to pitch the guy, and I don't pitch. And the guy afterwards who introduced me to this wealthy guy said, you know, you don't pitch, you like grow like a vine on somebody. So that's what I do. So, you know, it takes me a while to get up on the stage. It takes me a while to do everything. So, but pardon me, but, you know, as I listen to, I already go off script right away. So as I listen to, I don't have a script. But I got a few slides. So as I listen to Nancy and Talik, I heard those stories already, and I'll tell you a little story from my wife, who's from very, very rural Ireland. They didn't have electricity in her town until 1969. Rural electrification came to Ireland. And it's a good story because her parents owned a pub, and when they got into the pub, everybody told the same stories over and over again. And so instead of telling a story, people had numbers, and they'd say 22, 57, and if you said 22, they'd laugh, and 57. And so some guy came into the pub, and they're just calling out numbers, and he says, what's going on here? He says, well, we told the stories so many times that we just put numbers to them, and when a person tells their story, you just say the number. And so they're doing it, 8, everybody laughs, 12, everybody laughs. So this guy joins in, he says, 22, nobody laughs. He says, what's the matter? And they all go, you didn't tell it right. So, and there really is something to a culture around telling the same stories over and over again, because I never get tired of hearing them. I never get tired of hearing Nancy telling that story. And I've heard Talik now, and he's very, very young, but I've heard him tell it a few times, and that's okay. And Dennis always, people say, well, he told the same story. That's right. That's his story. All right? And that's all right, too, and I do, too. So I'm going to go back on, and let's, Brian, if you can. So this one. So this is a guy from Australia, and he works with us there. And he actually, this is a sign in Australia, and we have people from Belize here, and the Netherlands, and China, and a lot of different countries. We have I was just in India for weeks, and we have a wonderful school there. But this is in Australia, and it's in the kind of middle of nowhere. And they had this sign that said, we are here, it is now, the rest is guesswork. And there's a lot to that. And they didn't say, you are here. They said, we are here, even if with you nobody, you're there with somebody, if you follow me, if you're with me now. And when we wrote up, Brian, if you get to that next slide there, everybody's focused on, because the big bold letters leading with body and soul and the Sankofa is there. But I really want to talk about the word with. Because with is a big deal around leadership, because most of the time in schools we do something to somebody, not with somebody. And when you're in the school tomorrow, you got to be with staff and with students. And that's what we do with Big Picture. That's not solely the only ones who do it, but when you see it, you know you're with somebody. And that's a big deal. So I have a little activity, and you know, we got the word mind and body and soul, and I'm not big on mind. You know, everybody says mindset. I don't like the set. What do you mean set? You know? But I'm big on body and soul, all right? And I'm big on maybe body and soul being before mind, all right? Or mixing them up sometimes. Why is the mind first? Because it talks so much, all right? So that's something that we got to consider. Body and Soul actually was my mom's favorite movie, and it starred John Garfield, Lily Palmer, and somebody named Canada Lee, who probably nobody knows about, but he was an incredible man who passed away when he was 45, and he was a concert violinist, then he was a jockey, then he had 200 fights. He was born in Manhattan. He won 150 of those fights, and he became a very, very famous actor that you probably don't know who he is, but he starred with Sidney Poitier in Cry of the Beloved Country. And they were both smuggled in as indentured servants into South Africa, where it was filmed. That's the man who starred in Body and Soul, who played a punchy fighter. Both John Garfield and Canada Lee were brought before the House on Un-American Activities Committee, and they asked Canada Lee to turn in Paul Robeson, and he said, no, I'm not going to do it. You're splitting my race up. I ain't doing it. And that's what John Garfield was like, and Canada Lee. And I learned a lot about that stuff from two uneducated people, my parents, uneducated school, uneducated. They never graduated high school, but that was their life. Anyhow, so the Body and Soul piece is a big deal. Also, a man named Eddie Jefferson sang that song. He invented something called vocalese with that song, where you say not every syllable, every word is a note. And Eddie Jefferson and John Kendricks just died. He was 96 years old. He made vocalese famous, but Eddie Kendricks was the one who invented it. It's him right now.
Since you said that you love me, I never
Some of you may know his voice from Moody's movie.
Girl, you are so heavenly, my angel. You made me about to have
he died young as well. So,
and I've certainly been around. I'm awfully glad I'm
so on your table there, and just to get started with the with and not two, you got some string. And Marcel Duchamp, I want you each to take 3 strings, and on the table there's a string that's already taped down. And there's a piece of paper and there's some pens. And I never did this before, but Marcel Duchamp did it. And he was proving a point that's a point about what we're about in the next couple of days. Because that line represents the standards, and that line represents how we're supposed to be, like Talik was talking about. But if you take 3 of those strings and drop them from the same distance, just drop them. Each one of you, each individually, drop each string individually from the same distance on that white piece of paper, and you will see they are the exact same measurements of the string on the table, but they vary in how they are and who they are. And if you take that pen and you trace the string that you have, and you shut your mouths for a second, like we all should, all right, and just do something with your hands, you will see that you are following with the string, which is the student or the staff member. You are being with it, not doing something to it. And that's very, very significant for what we got to do as leaders, which a lot of times we're just telling people what the heck to do instead of being with and following, because that measure is exactly the same length as that straight string that everybody wants you to conform to. Now, we could run a whole workshop about that, and you can talk about it at your table, but that's the song, If I Could Be With You an Hour Tonight. I only got 10 minutes, so I want to kind of show a few more slides, and I want to thank everybody for doing that. Brian, if you get on to the next couple of slides. Is this with or to? A friend of mine, Lee Towner, who's a radiologist, took these pictures. He's also a concert violin. He plays the viola da gamba, which nobody plays. Is that with or to? Well, you can have a conversation about it. Next slide. Is that with or to? And sometimes to is okay, but is that with or to? It says concert pianist Jade Simmons mesmerizes youngster by revealing the inner mysteries of the piano during her residency in Seattle schools. The next one. After Chiara String Quartet musical story program for elementary schools, cellist Greg Beaver encourages children to pluck the strings and feel the vibrations. Is that a with, a to, or a both? So how are we with students? Peter talked about that today. He mentioned the with, but he didn't know he was even saying it. He said we had to be with students and with staff. And as leaders, that's sometimes hard because you start doing something to somebody rather than with them. And that's a very, very powerful thing. So next slide, Brian. And so I was in Japan for 3 weeks. I was doing some work there with schools and sustainability, just to make you think a little bit differently and believe and feel. Every student in kindergarten on parents are not allowed to take their children to school. Not allowed. They take the Tokyo subway. These are kindergartners. I took a picture of them on a Tokyo subway going to school by themselves. Most of the parents are going, oh my God, how could they do that? But we just don't think that way. We don't believe they can. Older children train or go with the younger children on their journeys. They learn how to do it, and then after a month of school, they're on the subways by themselves. Are they alone or are they with adults? That's the question. They're with. So that's a very, very powerful little photo I took or actually my wife took when we were on the subways in Tokyo. And Brian? Yep. So later on tonight, if you're able and if you want to stick around, I'm going to do a little preview of an animation called Navigating Our Way, and I hope that a few of you have a little time to spend with me, an hour or so I can develop this and learn a little bit more from you. So I'll stop right there. Think about being with, not to, or to and with at the same time, and what does that mean when you're in the schools tomorrow? Thank you all very much, and appreciate you all coming.